of what we can do. The state invested in us by giving us $2 million for capital outlay, which allows us to start the architectural planning in detail that we need to put a shovel in the ground.
This is an opportunity to celebrate our music in a true institutional way that will have economic impact, that will tell the story of our music, that will help music education across the state.
Well, 2 years ago we did an economic impact study, and the economists came back and said it would be a $150 million economic impact. To me, I think it's like a one-for-one, it's a no-brainer. You spend $165 million to build a project that delivers $150 million with an impact a year. Why wouldn't you do that?
So to understand better Louisiana music, you need to start with the blues, because without blues there is no jazz, there is no R&B, there is no rock and roll.
You can tell a lot about the music and history from these archives and these objects and these letters and things like that. Musicians travel, people travel, music travel.
As far as New Orleans is concerned, there isn't a lot you can do where you don't have music involved.
Music is a part of everything we do, not just static artifacts and exhibits. That's an important part, but there's storytelling, there's music to be made, there's music to be explained.
The work that the museum project is doing in general is crucial, I think, to the community.
It's such an amazing experience here.
The musical lineage coming from Louisiana and New Orleans, and it has affected all types of music all around the globe, and it's important for people to have access to come and learn about it.
Well, to participate in helping to build that story and create the history of what that is or where it's going to be, I like being a part of that. The future is bright in New Orleans. Build it and they will come.
The Louisiana Music and Heritage Experience long-range plan is to change the music industry as far as compensation for musicians and gig workers. Starting with the work that we did with the Funky Uncle, we realized that producing quality music and pay at the right rates to fairly treat musicians and gig workers is necessary. Also, go into the clubs and provide support and grants to bands for guarantees, and also run an education program so that buyers understand what low cover charges or free music means to the musician's way of life. If we're all about education and inspiration, who is being inspired the most to create great music and to create our history than youth?
So it's a lot of influence here for those who are wanting to get into the music industry. I'm happy to see it happening. In fact, that somebody cares enough to want to keep the music going and want to have a place for these young people.
Literally, what music is passing the torch to the next generation.
It's so important to keep it throughout the generations, because that's just how it can live on.
I would not be here if it wasn't for being around those older guys who opened those doors for me to walk into.
So it's all about building, and I think if we build together with Chris and his staff, we can build this into something amazing.
I'm hoping to just keep creating music like that for the rest of my life.
And this is going to be something that's going to go on and on and on.
It's the final frontier for music museums. I've been involved in a lot of them, and this is the last one that needs to be done. New Orleans is the most musical city, perhaps in the world, and not to have a major institution, I don't say it's necessary, I say it's mandatory.
There are so many positives from the Louisiana Music and Heritage Experience. Our phenomenal economic impact, the cultural and societal impact, and of course, changing the music industry for musicians and gig workers for our and their future. Please join us.
In Lubbock, Texas, there was something, and there is still something called the Buddy Holly Center. And that idea was to talk and deal with one particular major artist. That gave rise to something that I worked on, and Dina was a major part of, called the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Anna Canoni here, very much a part. Her mom, Nora Guthrie, a major player in the creation of that, still going strong in Tulsa. And then, of course, there is the great Bob Dylan Center, also in Tulsa, just a stone's throw away from where the Woody Guthrie Center is located. So, thinking how do we make sure that major artists who really identify and reflect the American story through music, how do they get something of consequence to celebrate their music and also to keep their story and their archives alive? This idea of particular institutions that focus on one artist sprouted. So we have three, the Guthrie, the Lubbock, the Buddy Holly, and Dylan, and the Springsteen Archives would be the fourth. I call it this Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. It's an interesting concept, and the reason why it's so long and so comprehensive, two reasons. One is because when I'm from New Jersey, I was born in Jersey and grew up on the Jersey Shore with Bruce and the E Street Band guys, in bands with those guys, and so I have a very deep-seated connection to it. And I went to, at the time it was called Monmouth College, today Monmouth University on the Jersey Shore, located 3 blocks from where Bruce wrote the great album Born to Run, and where I first met him as a student many, many years ago. Anyway, I had gotten requests from the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, and others saying, hey, could you introduce us to Bruce Springsteen? We'd love to potentially get his archives, his memorabilia, papers, etc., for the national story, which would make a lot of sense. Except Bruce is so synonymous with New Jersey that I thought if I was going to be the one who was going to have Bruce's materials and legacy moved out of New Jersey, there'd probably be a hit on me. So I decided not to do that, and I went to my university and I said, I have an idea, this Bruce Springsteen Archives. He's so identified with the school, his very first fans came from college. Would you be interested in donating the land? They said yes. And then I did some more research, and then finally I went to John Landau, Bruce Springsteen's manager. I told him of my idea. He said, that sounds pretty good. Let's go talk to Bruce. So we went over to Bruce Springsteen's farm, which is about 7 miles away from Monmouth University in Colts Neck. Great, beautiful part, most beautiful part of New Jersey, farm, horse country. And John turned around and says, okay, Bob, tell him. And that was it. Like, okay. And Bruce, who I've known a long time, you know, when he listens, you really can't tell if he's really listening or what he's thinking. I thought maybe he was thinking, maybe what am I having for lunch or a new song. He said nothing. And I finally, at the end of my spiel, he said, he says, you know, that's really nice. I'm humbled by the idea. He says, but I'm just a chapter in the ongoing story of American music. I feel like I can't have the place just about me. He said, if you broadened it, then I'd be interested. And I said, funny you should ask. I kind of figured that, knowing him. And I said, unfortunately, there's never been a true Center for American Music in Washington, D.C. And I probably will not see that in my lifetime. Therefore, what about if we created the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music under one roof, with the idea that you are kind of like the poster child for American music, especially in places like Europe, Australia, Japan, where they see Bruce and Bruce's music as what America's supposed to be, right? And he was quiet, and he said, show me the space, just like that. And John and I got in John's car, and Bruce got on his motorcycle. And we went over to Monmouth University, and I showed him, well, this is the plant, and et cetera. Very quiet. This will do. Got back on his motorcycle. And that was it. I looked at John, and I said, well, I guess we're going to do this, huh? And we started. So the concept was bold and very, very ambitious. I had to raise all the money, and I started. This was approximately $48 to $50 million project. We hit a big bump in the road like everyone did, COVID. But I'm proud to say that at this stage of the game, we've raised 40 of the 48 million that we need. So by the time we open those doors in next May, 14 months, 15 months, whatever it is, the building will be paid for. We also have our endowment in place, a $10 million endowment, anonymous donor. But I have to open the doors before I see that. If I open those doors in May, I get that check, which is incredible because, as my colleagues know, it is one thing to create a museum. It's another thing to make it self-sustainable and stay in the black. That's the hardest part. So having an endowment is like hitting the lottery. I don't know who this person is, but I'm going to kiss him. So we've been doing things as well, taking the same tack that the Louisiana Music and Heritage Experience has done, essentially. Woody Guthrie lyrics, what else we have? Jim Morrison's journals, Taylor Swift's outfit and guitar. We took it from 1771, which is our earliest object. It's a hymnal, because early American music was a lot about religious music, and right on up to Taylor Swift. It's been a huge hit thus far. It will go next, as I say, to the Bush Library. Then it will come back to New Jersey for our opening in next May, and then head to the Ford Library. I think it's going to the Carter Library. I can't remember exactly where. My curators take care of that. But so that's one major exhibit that we are trying to demonstrate what we can do and how we can play a role, not just blues related, but the Center for American Music. And then also something, and I'll stop here, and we can show a little bit of a clip from what I'm about to say. We created something. I knew that each institution needs, if you will, a landmark event, an annual event. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has their induction ceremonies. Farhoff has its induction ceremonies. Country Music Hall of Fame. Well, we don't induct anyone, but we created something called American Music Honors, the American Music Honors. Quite honestly, it's a takeoff on Kennedy Center Honors. However, we're strictly about music, and those artists who have contributed significantly to the American music treasury, but also have used their music in somehow, some way to make this a better place, our country a better place. We've honored a number of artists so far. Last year, for instance, we honored John Mellencamp, Jackson Brown, Mavis Staples, and Dion. This year, this coming April, on April 26th, we will honor John Fogerty, Smokey Robinson, Emmylou Harris, Joe Ely, and Tom Morello. Different genres of music, obviously you know which ones they are. Bruce is one of the presenters. We use E Street Band guys to present. Nils Logren will present, a guitar player will present, Tom Morello, a guitar player. Patty Scalfer, Bruce's wife and band member on the E Street Band, will present Emmylou Harris. And this basically has become that signature event for us. It's third annual, and it's something that will grow. It's an interesting thing because many of these kinds of things don't happen only in LA, New York, Nashville. And now we have one on the Jersey Shore for the Center for American Music. This is a clip from last year, very short clip, but you'll get a sense of the kind of musical quality that is embedded into the show. Hopefully we have. Looking out at the road, what's looking for you? Steve Van Zandt's Disciples of Soul is the backing band. I don't know how to tell you, it's the craze like me.
Thanks for being here tonight, and congratulations on joining our American Music Honors.
Miss Mavis Staples. If you're ready, well now, if you're ready now, yeah.
Never settle down.
So you hear more about us, of course, as we get closer to grand opening, but the goal and the hope is that Bruce's archive serves as a repository for researchers, students, journalists, etc., and the Center for American Music does the same thing, except gets far more ambitious in terms of new exhibits, programs, concerts, symposia, and then, of course, most importantly, I think, working with my colleagues here, because there's always strength in numbers, and what all of us are doing together really does allow for the opportunity to make a strong statement for how important music is in our lives, in our cultures, both American and Canadian, and really across the world. And we intend to do this and do it well. Thanks.
Yeah.